Well, hello there, and welcome to this fine Monday stream. What's going on, Cacti Crown and Sleepy Creator? Welcome, welcome. Today we're gonna do a little bit of level design together. So I've been doing some pretty complicated and deep-reaching tech work lately. And while I feel it has been really good stuff, really good work, really important work to be able to ship this game in all of its glory, it's been kind of exhausting. And so today I want to do something simpler and more laid back. And with that, I want to actually do a little bit of just like very, very early, as you can see, very early level design. Do let me know if my audio levels are all right, by the way. And if they aren't, well, we're going to try to fix that. But yes, this is a level that I started working on kind of recently. I don't think I've done more than maybe like an hour or so of work on this guy. So you're seeing this from almost from the beginning. It's a relatively small level. You can see here's a scout, and you can hear my famous squeaking controller in the background, which I should really replace. Anyway, you can see that it's a pretty small level. We can actually just play it from here. Right, I actually don't have any volume going on currently. So yeah, there's something special there in the background, which we're not going to go into because I don't want to spoil this for you necessarily. But it's a fairly small level, at least compared to the one that you may have already played if you played the pre-alpha version. And it's kind of compartmentalized. It's not very wide open this time around. And of course, this is not really necessarily the shape it's going to get in the end, but probably something like this, perhaps. And we'll try to figure it out. So I essentially only have a piece of terrain here currently. This is supposed to be a cliff, but I'm gonna decorate it with models, like we did in the previous level, and we probably won't get to that today necessarily. I don't know. Maybe we will. We'll see. We'll see how far we can get. Before that, I want to try to sort of make the most out of this terrain here, this height map, which doesn't give us overhangs or anything like that, of course, but we can try to sort of shape the base here as far as we can, because it's just so easy to modify. And then we're gonna add some of the gameplay things here to give it sort of like the feeling I'm going for, maybe. So if that sounds like fun, you're welcome to hang around for maybe a couple of hours, maybe a little more than that. We'll see how it goes. But let's start with a little sip of coffee. And so if you don't know what this is, if you're new to the channel, then first of all, welcome. Glad to have you. I'm making a game called Traction Point, which I'm doing as almost a solo developer. I actually have a few guys helping me out with some of this stuff, and the reason I'm doing this now is actually kind of tied into a piece of work that I'm doing with someone who's doing sort of like narrative design for me. Hey Dimitar, welcome back. And yeah, I have sort of like a need for another level. Actually, I have need and I have use for many levels, of course. We kind of only really have the one that you can play in the pre-alpha. But I have kind of like extra need for another level, and for a few. And this work is of course, it's kind of interesting because I want to kind of share this work with you guys, but I don't want to necessarily spoil the game for you. So I'm gonna be a little light on some of the details and some of the reasons why I do some of these things here. But I'm sure there'll be a lot to talk about anyway. Right, how do we actually want these kind of cliffs to look? I think I might want to just like try. This is such an early stage of this level still that I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't really know what I want. I don't really know how I want it done. If that makes sense. So there's going to be a lot of just trying things out. I have sort of a vague idea of what I want this level to be. I have a vague idea of what I want it to be in terms of the fictional story that the game tells, and I also have a vague idea of what kind of sort of gameplay purpose I want it to serve, and the kind of stuff that I want it to, you know, tell the player, what kind of stuff I want it to teach the player, and so on. But I don't know necessarily how to make those things happen. And so there's a little bit of what's it called, like blank page syndrome going on that I'm trying to overcome just by, you know, getting started with this thing, seeing what works, seeing what feels good, seeing what looks good, and take it from there. And let's hope that my engine here and my editor doesn't fall flat on its face, because if you didn't know, I basically redid the, well, not really redid, but I essentially switched out my graphics API recently. So if that's interesting to you, I wrote like a whole lot about it, maybe even like slightly too much. More than people were interested in, probably, on the Discord, about how that stuff came together and all of that. So do check out the Discord if you're into that kind of stuff. Maybe we don't want to do that. I want some of these to be pretty sort of steep. Here we can see sort of like the resolution of the height map sort of shining through. It's not really an issue because we're going to be replacing, or we're going to be sort of covering these faces up probably with actual meshes. Same thing for this lower side here, though we're mostly going to be concentrating on this edge here, because you can't really see it because you'll be kind of seeing this, so you can't necessarily see the thing from up there, but still we're gonna be decorating this a little bit, and I think like the camera is probably gonna be sort of approaching the scene like this, so it does need to look good. Dimitar is asking Vulkan. Not Vulkan yet, at least, but let's see if it works. It probably will crash. But we can actually run the game in D3D12 mode now. Just toggling another flag here. And so now we can see it is running in D3D12. It is sort of like, the reason I say it is probably going to crash is that like I can't do certain things in D3D12 currently. Because I need to make some changes to like the high level renderer works. Things that I just quite simply can't do in D3D12, and it kind of manifests itself. You can see that it runs pretty well. Still haven't converted the shaders to DXIL or anything like that. They're still running off the D3D11 shaders, and it works pretty well. And I'm hoping it will work even better when I convert the shaders to DXIL, because because I have some things here that like clearly aren't very well generated. The code doesn't get very well generated for certain cases. So that is kind of like the whole reason I did this thing, that I can target D3D12 because I want to use DXIL shaders. And yeah, if you want to know more about that whole thing, I can go through it at some point. How I sort of determined that it's actually the shader generation that's bad. Did like a whole profiling thing about it. But anyway, so this is the D3D12. It kind of manifests itself if I resize the window a few times. I think now it will crash. Nope. Oh, now that five times. We're running out of descriptor heap space, specifically with sampler descriptors, and I need to change something for that to work. However, just like I can support D3D12, I should, at least in theory, be able to just flip a switch and support Vulkan as well, because I'm now using NVRHI, which is sort of like an abstraction layer, which does have a Vulkan backend. Where did I leave my carver? There's one. Is that the one I used? Probably, yeah. And so Vulkan should be possible. I am not super interested in targeting Vulkan though. Perhaps somewhat surprisingly. Hey Matt, welcome back. Perhaps somewhat surprisingly, I'm not super interested in targeting Vulkan. Surprising, perhaps, seeing that I already convert all my shaders to SPIR-V, so it should, like in theory, be even, easier than properly targeting D3D12. The thing is that I don't really need Vulkan for anything these days, since D3D12 works so well on Linux. I might do it if I feel like I have some benefit from that, but I want to properly support D3D12, and as a fallback, I want to support, at least for a little while still, I want to support D3D11. Right? And just supporting a third one, which really doesn't essentially give me any benefit, other than perhaps letting me target Linux natively, it's not necessarily really worth it. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't really see any point right now in putting any time into Vulkan support. But that might change, I guess. And if it does, then it should be a lot easier now after my refactoring than what it was previously. So that's at least pretty nice. Pretty nice. Okay, this is supposed to be like a somewhat tall kind of... this is kind of like a side of a mountain or some sort of plateau. There's a lot of plateaus in this game. Which there is actually sort of like a narrative reason kind of for. And so in the other mission, you're sort of trying to get up onto a certain plateau, and this is another one. And here we're actually already sort of on it. And I'm trying to kind of figure out a little bit how I want to make the shape of this. I think maybe we'll just do like be kind of brutal about it and then just bump this up quite a bit. Then maybe melt that edge. Melt it away a little bit. But yeah, like I said, it is possible that something strange will happen today. I think I have now ported over everything that sort of broke due to the graphics API change. Or should I say abstraction API? It's still the same graphics API as it used to be. That being D3D11. But the abstraction is different, and that had me rewrite just like a whole bunch of stuff. So I think it's almost inevitable that I broke something. In fact, I broke like a whole lot of stuff. I just probably thought like 10 times that, okay, now I have probably at least D3D11 working correctly. Now I have at least that, and I can go back to it, you know, using that. And then 1 hour later, I'm like, oh, yeah, this doesn't work at all, not even on D3D11. And then I have to go and fix that, and blah, blah, blah. That's kind of how it usually goes. Right, so this is supposed to be sort of rising, which you can see that it is currently. Here's our carver thing here. We can see this is now sort of level. It rises a little bit. It's not supposed to be super steep. That's kind of supposed to be a road here, which we don't have yet, but soon. And then I think this part here is supposed to be a little lower. Now it sort of dips into that side. I don't think that's necessarily how we want it. I was kind of trying that out when I started working on this mission, that like maybe this should be the lowest part, but I don't think it necessarily should. I think this should probably be the lowest part. So let's go with that. Let's dig that out a little bit. A little more coffee. All right, and just with a very low strength, just start to dig out this space here. Another thing that might break today, speaking of things that might break, another thing that might just completely, collapse is my voice. So we'll see how that kind of holds together. I don't know, I've had some like allergies and something lately, which kind of makes me sound kind of like sick a little bit, which is annoying because I haven't been sick. I think it's an allergies. What with all the seeds and the pollen and everything starting to emerge again. So we'll see how that works out as well. Let's see. Vulkan only really seems to be a benefit if you want to fiddle with the depths of your GPU coding or want to port to Android, I guess. I think the Switch supports it too. Switch does support Vulkan, yes. Yeah, if you're super hardcore about targeting Switch, I think Vulkan is a pretty good platform to have as your main one. I don't think personally, this is of course just my own personal opinion here, I really don't think writing Vulkan is fun. Speaking as someone who has written two Vulkan backends now, for this very engine. One of them on stream, or not on stream, sorry, but on video. You can see the whole thing from beginning to end on the channel. If you want to see how I went about writing one of those Vulkan backends for this engine, using the VEZ helper library. And there's another one, which unfortunately isn't on video, but that was the first one which I did, which was just raw Vulkan. Neither of them really felt like, yeah, this is what I want to do, which is why I went with NVRHI, which just makes a whole lot of stuff easier. And Matt says, I do think there's a weird amount of more tutorial style info for Vulkan, so that may be why a lot of people initially get drawn to it. Yeah, I think so. I think so as well. There does seem to be, at least in the like recent years, or shall we say, especially in recent years, seems to be a lot more info and tutorials and overall tips and tricks for Vulkan, which is of course a good thing. That's awesome that we now have people helping other people out with that stuff. That's really nice. Perhaps more so than with D3D11. That's not to say that there isn't information about D3D or 12, of course. Talking about 12 here. The AAA gaming industry runs almost, like if we're talking PC here, AAA gaming industry runs almost exclusively on D3D12. I know there are some outliers there, like id Tech-based things tend to be Vulkan, but the rest of the industry is almost completely D3D12 based. Why that is, I'm not sure, but that tends to be the way it is. And I've always been more of a DirectX boy than like an OpenGL or Vulkan person. I don't really know why. I think ever since like DX9 days, I've sort of, for some reason, just doing a lot more DX stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with Vulkan, other than the fact that it tends to be the most verbose and the most kind of fiddly of the new APIs. Like if I could choose a so-called modern API to work with, I would probably choose. Well, if I can choose, I would choose any of them. I would choose probably WebGL. Not WebGL, WebGPU. I think the API in WebGPU is just really, really nice. And if I couldn't choose that because it's arguably not a real native API, then I would probably choose Metal, even though I'm kind of sick and tired of Apple and their shenanigans these days. I would probably choose Metal because Metal, the API is just really nice. Really nice to use. I don't want to write D3D12 native stuff either. I have better things to do with my time writing GPU code at that level. And so, because of all of that, I went with NVRHI, and it seems to work pretty nicely. I'm not sort of, at least yet, I'm not thinking it was a bad thing, bad idea. Okay, it can be kind of tricky to tell the height sort of difference here. So maybe what we will do is we will add in a layer here. We can make it the primitive geometry object, and it can be a box. Make the color something like blue, and then set the size to 500 by 1 by 500. And we can see that, okay, we're still sort of, this is still clearly the deepest part of the thing, and I don't necessarily want that to be the case. This almost looks like a water surface now, but that's not what it's supposed to be. We're not going to leave this here. To be on the internet can get very Microsoft bad, so that might be part of it. Yeah, I guess it can. I guess it can be that. Let's try to make this like a gentle slope. Like in my mind, I can already see how this is going to look when it's done. I know that doesn't necessarily help you guys, but maybe if you play this, you can then later come back and think, oh, that's how it was done. I remember this. So I'm going to make this bit sort of deeper still, this area. And this is way too... I need this to be a lot sharper, so let's do that. Then just like bring this down, make it a lot sharper, like this. Something like that. It's of course it's going to be even sharper than that, and there might even be some sort of overhangs and things like that, but we need to use meshes for that. All right. So now if we bring this down, we can see that there's still actually pretty deep here. Some deep shit. This is starting to look like what I wanted to have. We're gonna have to play this. We can create a layer here and move this guy to the layer. Editor. Oh, editor only. Just like that, and then it won't actually appear in the game itself. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if this little sort of glade here should be sort of even deeper. Do we need more space than this? We might need more space than this to make this work. And also we're gonna need that strange looking thing there in the distance to be visible. more visible than it currently is. So we're gonna have to lower this part, but that's not a problem at all. We have a lot of space here to work with, like vertical space. So we're pretty high up. We're not as high up as the terrain permits. I think it's 150 world units is the range that I have set for this guy now. What is the... If I want to measure that. Alright, that's like 80, 87. It's a bit tricky to get it to be exactly straight, of course. Something like that. Yeah, it's about 80. Yeah, so that's not a problem. We have lots of vertical space still to go, but this is as low as it goes. Like if we raise this, it goes up. If we try to lower it, it will stop at that level because it's a height map, and it's quite simply sitting at the 0 value, so it doesn't go any lower than that. We can go higher still though than this, and we need the mountain to be higher. We don't necessarily need the terrain to be higher. We can perhaps do the top just completely with meshes. But we might want to have the terrain go higher as well, so that's probably good. Let's just hide that guy for now. Bring it back later if we need to. Let's see. You got fun editor tools to make, then break, then maybe fix. Also a game, I guess. Yeah, the game is sort of exactly on that level. It's like I guess it's a game. Still. This year, this 2025 is the year that this game is gonna have to turn into a proper game if it is ever going to do that, right? And that's sort of what we're doing here now. Just moving on from the demo and towards an actual game. Make this a little. We're still. Do you support multiple terrain meshes? Yes, I do. Yeah, you can just create a new terrain if you want. Fun fact, actually, if you launch the game, it's just the easiest way for me to show this to you now. Yeah, I don't know if you, Matt, have actually played the pre-alpha one, but you can actually see, or maybe you can't, in which case I have done my work correctly, but there's actually a terrain seam right here. You can see it sort of, you can follow it pretty well. Then it goes like right here, and then here, and you can most likely follow it all the way up to here somewhere. If we go below the ground, you can see that here's one terrain mesh, and it ends here. There's a little bit of overlap here, so that I can do this sort of zigzagging. As you can see, the main terrain ends here. So you've actually been looking at two different terrain meshes for quite some time. What was I doing? I think I was tweaking the shape of this a little bit. So this early in the level design process, I kind of know already, well, for this particular game, the way I do levels is that I typically have a mission kind of not necessarily finalized, but I already have sort of a script for what will happen in this level. And so I kind of know that, okay, you know, when you're standing somewhere, you're gonna need to see, the player is going to have line of sight to that place, or the player, it can't take too long for the player to get to that place from here, and things like that. You gotta know, you need to know the shape and the size, the scale of things. And so this early in the level design process, I'm mostly thinking about those things rather than like how exactly is this going to look, if that makes sense. I know how, or at least I have an idea of how I want this to look as well, but even more important than that is like just like the size of the level and where everything is, so that it kind of supports the mission that I have in mind. And so that's why I'm already tweaking some of these like heights here, kind of on a pretty detailed level. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are like well tweaked or properly tweaked though. But I have some ideas already for what is actually going to be happening here, and I kind of know that, okay, for that thing to be, you know, readable for the player, we need there to be line of sight here to this thing here in the background, for example. So that's I'm sort of bringing down this terrain here already now, even though the rest of the level kind of looks like ass, if we're being honest. Right. Righty-o, my coffee is cold. That's not nice. Yeah, I think I want to probably... There was an annoying sort of pit here that you have to sort of drive through when you drove up there. So let's do like flatten this thing out a little bit. I think the mission is going to start a little further up further up this road, but I'm going to be annoyed here during the making of it. Yeah, I can see now it's much more straight. And then you're sort of driving down into a pit here as well. So let's try to make that less, to make it more subtle, shall we say. And I think I'm gonna do that by lowering this area here as well. I think we want a little less fall off to make it sort of cut into the terrain a bit more. Because I don't want it to feel like you're starting by driving up a hill and then all of a sudden you're like driving down a hill. You'll probably be doing a little bit of that, but not a whole lot. Just lower this place almost in its entirety a little bit. And I'm sure we'll be digging actually sort of actual roads into this terrain at some point, just like we did in the pre-alpha 1 level. They tend to be sort of cut into the ground, like dug into the ground a little bit more than the rest of the terrain. But before we do that, I want sort of like the overall ground shape to be kind of what I want, what I had in mind originally. All right. Yeah, this is a little annoying, quite frankly. So we're gonna do this leveling out, use the leveling out tool a little bit here as well. Or whatever I call that. I think I call it the ramp tool actually, because it's kind of handy to use for ramps. Like if you wanted to make a ramp that goes up here, you can just do like this, and it creates like a ramp for you. Like this. So that's what I typically use it for. Yeah, this is starting to feel nicer. Then I think we still want this to be, I still want this to feel like it's sort of like uphill. I've actually gone sort of back on my original idea for this, that this was kind of like downhill. I think I want it to be uphill instead, which makes sense because this is like the mountain kind of continues this way. To make that look somewhat sensible though, I think we need to probably just raise everything a little bit when we're going this way. I'm gonna move that carver out of the way, otherwise I'm gonna forget that it's there and it's gonna be underground, which is not necessarily a problem. But let's actually see how tall can we make. Let's uncheck that, and then I can just keep the mouse pressed. Yeah, you can see that is how high the terrain goes. So from down here, that's the lowest point, to there, that's the highest point. And that is quite simply this vertical range here, set to 150 world units. So we can scale it if we want to, but I don't want to do that now. Yeah, that will be quite enough, I think, because we're not going to be driving up there anyway. So let's just make this taller, higher for now. Bring the strength down a little bit. So I'm going to start just by quite simply making this part of the mountain here, the rock, taller. And again, we're not really concerned with the look of these shapes, just the overall shape. It should be obvious. Oh, okay, the mountain continues that way, right? And then we can level them. There's an actual honest-to-God leveling tool here, which we can use. We can record that height, and then go like only make things lower, or only make things higher, or the default, which is like make things both higher and lower. And I think we're gonna want to actually rotate the sun here as well. So the sun is, where's the sun? The sun is over there. Yeah, so it's casting those long shadows there. So we just remove, not remove, but rotate. Yeah, I think this is nicer. Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to probably play with this a little bit. Like I rotated the sun in the demo level or the pre-FA1 level actually quite late. Maybe we'll want it like on the completely opposite side, actually. No, I don't think so. I think we'll want to have some shadows here on this rock face. I do think that is what we want to have. And then if this looks strange with the moon and the sun there, simultaneously we're just going to be moving the moon. This is not Earth anyway, so we don't have to be like accurate. We don't have to have accurate moon positions. Okay then. Yeah, we're never gonna see this side probably, but we're gonna see like this most likely. Let's move that out of the way. Go away. I can imagine the camera kind of arriving like this, and then we do the same sort of camera swoop as we did the other one. Maybe we will see it. Yeah, it is possible. Okay, well, let's do a little bit of modeling here on this side as well. Take away that weird edge there. And there will probably have to be more of these kind of terraces here. But whether we do that with just meshes or we actually use the terrain system for that remains to be seen. But we can put in some of them now here with this. And of course I could quite easily actually use something like Blender Sync to model some cliffs here, and I'm no doubt I will do that at some point, but I don't necessarily want to model today. I don't have that much time to stream today, so I think I will try to just keep to terrain if I can help it. Is your driving game really complete if you don't take the gravitational effects of the moon into account? I think the real problem is if I do take them and I spend like you know, I meticulously figure out the gravitational effect of the moon and model it and apply it to the rigid body and all of the rigid bodies of the vehicle. Will you be able to tell? Right? I think I can just claim I did that, and then nobody will be able to say anything about it. Because the effect is so small. There we have a few terraces. Should we put in some terraces here on this side as well? I don't really know. I don't really know if we should. I mean, these obviously look strange, but that's just because they've been made with the. They have been made with the carver. I need to record it like that, and then you know, bring it down a little bit. What's happening here? Why are you not flattening it out? There we go. And I was actually thinking here that like, yeah, this doesn't look very good. There's this plane here which I positioned right at the same height as this other thing. This is again one of those distant rendered objects, which means that it like it can look a little funky, and actually it kind of looks like it's not. There's the plane. Right, this would have to be at, is it minus 0.5? Now it is actually sitting at the same level as this one, yeah. But yeah, this doesn't look very natural, so we're probably gonna have to put in some meshes, some like rocks and things like this on right down there, if we have the camera flying to the mountain like this. Maybe I'll actually want to bring this thing down a little. Just so that we can actually see that rock face there. Right? We don't want to see this edge here, but we can go like this. Anyway, this doesn't look very natural, of course. We need to do something about this shape here. And most likely we're going to be covering it up with meshes. But I think I'll want to have something here, something like kind of interesting. Not necessarily anything that you will be able to drive on, but if we now drive there and take a look, like the player does see that thing there. And it might make sense to make that look like, oh, oh, we got stuck. Yeah. Luckily we have the unstuckifier. Boop. There we go. Yeah, the physics don't necessarily match the terrain exactly when it's this steep, because I actually do like a downsampling of the physics terrain. Yeah, ooh. I'm gonna want to be a little careful with that. Or it is a setting, but it's by default it's set to like downsample by 2. So if you're considering like the visual height map here, the height map that you can actually see, then the physical height map is like half the resolution of that. You can make it even lower if you want to. Well, yeah, we'll see. It may be that I'll just create some really big mesh here that like makes this look like an actual cliff that kind of continues out onto the plain, sort of like we did here with this this one piece here in the pre-alpha 1 level, like all of this is actually a mesh, or almost all of it. The grass covers it up so well that it's kind of difficult to see, but yeah, you can see here's where the actual terrain ends once again. You can actually not really see the seam of where the terrain ends and the mesh begins, which is of course what I was hoping for. But yeah, all of this is just a mesh that then sort of fades down here into this other mesh, which is like a few kilometers large. So we'll do something similar there, probably with that other terrain. Let's see if we can actually see the seam here. Whoa. Did like a 180 jump there all of a sudden. Yeah, it's kind of like this same thing here, but obviously much steeper. And here you can sort of see the edge of where one mesh begins and another, or one mesh ends and another begins, but we can make that even more difficult to see if we really want to and or need to. That thing though is actually a terrain skirt. Yeah, that's interesting. Again, it's with these different render passes, because the terrain is rendered using the opaque pass, and this big plane here is rendered using the distant object pass. Even though the skirt is behind it, it is actually rendered in front of it. So that's annoying. Yeah, skirts are these kinds of small things that sort of reach down in between the terrain patches that get thicker the further away you are from them. But it's this thing here that makes it look like some sort of mosaic, and they help to cover up these holes that tend to appear between the different LOD levels. All right, but yeah, I think something like this will work for the other level as well. Like if you consider it sort of like this height, we would now be standing on top of here, right? We're sort of looking down. Doesn't need to be terrain because we can make it out of meshes like this, and then it sort of just fades into this background. I think that will work pretty well. That will work pretty well. This kind of chugs when we have the game running here in the background. Of course. I think these meshes actually don't even have a backside. They're just empty. They're backside-less. Alrighty then. So, what is the next thing then? Then I think we'll continue on this thing here, and let's make some part of this be sort of like the dominant piece. I think it should probably be this thing here that kind of separates these two areas. This is supposed to be like a tunnel, or tunnel gallery or something like that. and through it you can come to this place here. And so yeah, I think we will basically we want to make this the most sort of prominent cliff piece, kind of like we have the refinery cliff in the other level. Kind of usually, like, it might look cool, but it also might just make it easier to navigate if there's one cliff or one tall building or radio tower or something that you can see from almost from everywhere in the level. Just makes it easier to navigate. That's something that I've definitely tried to keep in mind while doing these levels. Which I'm sure you can, or I hope you can tell if you played the pre-alpha 1, because one of the most prominent pieces of cliff there is the refinery cliff. So what I think we're gonna do here now is something like this. We're gonna make this pretty tall, and then I'm gonna cut it sort of like at an angle. Actually, just like flatten the top here a little bit. Let's go flattening. Let's go flattening. It looks bad now, but I'm gonna tweak it a little bit. Yeah, so that's pretty tall. I don't think we need to make it necessarily any taller than that. And now we can let's take that guy. Make it a little shorter. It's easier to handle. And I'm gonna cut it at like an angle. Something like that. Something like that. And then we can move it down here. Probably like, I don't know, make the angle a little steeper still, and then we do the other, we do the extrusion. That completely vertical face there is a little ugly. So let's chill it with that, not go too crazy. And again, I'm really not trying to necessarily make this look like a nice looking cliff. Just want to kind of give the idea of a cliff here. Just an idea of a cliff that works in sort of like a, no, wrong button. It works in a white box fashion. Excuse me. Let's see. Straight. Dimitar says, I like how you use primitives to sculpt the terrain. Yeah, that's sort of like a big hack, but it's a hack that I've been using for quite some time. So I have this thing called the primitive geometry object, which allows you to create, you know, boxes and spheres and cylinders and that sort of thing. Like this thing here in the background is made out of them. This huge plane here is made out of it. It's a box, and so on. And this terrain carver actually just uses one of those. It has the exact same component here, the primitive geometry component. And then just as a carver, and the carver essentially all it does is it does a ray cast against the mesh from below. So you can do extrude, and it gives you something like that, and then you can do extrude and carve, and it sort of does the opposite. And it can be very handy to use as a sort of a very first sort of a rough base shape, if you will, before you start then actually carving it and sculpting it. Instant ramp, yes, indeed. Yeah. I mean, I've used this a lot to make like roads, for example. If you're making terrain the way I do, by just like raising and lowering and all of that, then at some point, yeah, you want to make an actual like dirt road. You quite often find that just driving on the road is really annoying, because it's just super bumpy. So again, if we go into the game here, some of these, especially some of these like smaller roads, we can see here that like the road is typically sort of dug into the terrain a little bit. Because I think like most of these places here I've actually started by well, making the terrain what the shape I want the terrain to be, but then I've sort of placed these carvers and moved them around and carved out pieces of this until it kind of feels nice to drive on these kind of dirt roads. And then you can add back the bumpiness, right? You don't, of course, need to leave it as a completely flat piece of road, but it can be super annoying if you kind of, if you're thinking that, yeah, I'll just like sculpt it. If your game's vehicles are as bumpy and jumpy as the ones that I have, those small bumps can feel actually kind of annoying in places where you want it to feel like, okay, now we're driving on like a proper road here, not off-road. Right, looks a little strange with this. Almost like brutalist boxes here, whatever you want to call those concrete blocks. Let's melt them a little bit. I don't really need to do anything about this. I don't think we'll ever see it, but why not? Let's melt it away anyway. Alrighty then. Let me check the clock here. Hey Marcus, welcome back. Long time no see. Which is mostly because of me. I haven't really had the time to stream a lot lately. But that should change now. I should once again have time to do more of this stuff, which is really nice. That's kind of annoying. Why have I left it like this? That looks kind of weird and ugly. like Lego in an oven. Do you usually put your Legos in ovens? I mean, I take your word for it that this is what it looks like, but I can't say I put many Legos in our oven. Okay, yeah, this is starting to already look a little more like a cliff, I think. Again, it's not necessarily the idea here to make it look like a cliff, just like give the overall, make the overall shape look like, oh, it could maybe be a cliff. And then when you have it sort of on that level, it's good enough for a first white box sort of thing. So one of the main features of this level, just like the other level, the pre-alpha 1 level, is a monorail. And the monorail is perhaps even in a larger role in this mission, even though you're not going to be riding it. It is still gonna be here, and I have sort of a rough idea of how I want the monorail to run. Yeah, you can see these shadows here are glitching out a little bit. That's only in the editor, and you can actually, if we preview the CPU tessellated terrain, the pre-tessellated terrain, this is what it looks like in the game. And we need to tweak the LOD levels maybe a little bit. But yeah, that's why, if you're wondering what these weird shadow glitches are, that the GPU tessellated terrain glitches out a little bit, and I haven't bothered to fix that because it's not visible in the game ever. Is the terrain height map based or voxels? It's a height map. Yeah, it's a height map. It's very simple. Very simple, basic height map. It's a very old system. And annoyingly, it's actually not using standard materials. It's something that I should change. Probably wouldn't even be that difficult to do. The terrain system is old enough that it is actually the first thing in this engine that got sort of like a terrain, sort of like a material system, if you will. Before that, I just had like objects could have like a texture and maybe a color, and then I multiplied those together. That was really it. Then this terrain system has like a sort of material. It has like a set of materials, but these are pretty basic, and you can layer. We're using the 8 material shader here for this terrain now, so we can have 8 different layers, and they can also have different physics, frictions and things like that. It's all baked into the thing. However, it is much more limited than the more modern material system, which actual meshes now uses, like this car here, for example, and many other things. Even particle systems these days use standard materials, but the terrain still doesn't. And I probably should make it so that it does that. But yeah, it's a very old system, so it's not very advanced. All right, I'm gonna go get a glass of water. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. Alrighty then. Yeah, I don't think I would necessarily use voxels for the terrain if I did it today. I might want to use something called vector fields. See if we can find some images here. So there's a pretty nice GDC talk from Halo Wars. It's called The Terrain of Halo Wars. You can just Google it. But I'm trying to find some cool images here, and I can't really find it. Find any. But they do some really cool things, and they can have like overhangs and all kinds of things. Because they're not storing just a single value, like in a height map. Instead, they're storing a 3D vector. And that means that you can have things like overhangs. Right in the terrain. And that's something that I've been sort of thinking about and wanting to do for probably 10 years or something, ever since I saw that GDC talk. So we can find some cool. Oh hey Wookie. You can do things like this. Like this is all terrain, believe it or not. Tunnels and stuff. Yeah, tunnels you can arguably make with a height field if you just have meshes sort of like in the covering up the you have like a mesh that they use for the insides, right? But yeah, stuff like this, you can have like overhangs, this sort of deal. It's really cool. Or this sort of thing. And that, I think most of this could be done with the height map. If you just have a high density enough. There's like the standard height field. With the vector field you could do things like this, so. I think that's probably how I would actually go about making a terrain system these days if I started from scratch. Yeah, anyway, so the monorail is kind of supposed to run, I think, here and then over this. Then I haven't quite decided how I want it to continue. Does it like go around here, or does it just cross over here, or does it actually turn and go this way? I don't know yet. I guess we'll find out. Monorail track, yeah, that is just the whole track from the previous, or from the other level. I just put it into one one big game object. It actually has like 4 different meshes. But yeah, this is actually made with like geometry nodes in Blender. We can maybe get a little bit of a sense of the like how large this track is. And of course it goes like up and down and all of that good stuff, and we'll generate this singular generate a similar one here for this level. But okay, I'm gonna do it like this. Let's make another layer here. I'm gonna call this monorail. I'll make it auto load, and inside of it create a folder, and we call this blockout. Right, and then we'll do primitive geometry object. Let's create it like there. And then I'm gonna rotate this huge thing so that it actually it faces it almost well enough already. Like so. That's quite good enough. And then we'll do size 10 is too much, but it's also we need to rotate this guy and move it off to the side. So I want to have something that is even that's too wide. If we just use the same, it's like 4.5, then we're in the safe zone. So then we can make this something like maybe 80. Actually, it needs to be probably 2.5 thick. Here we have a pretty good approximate piece of monorail track. Thank you very much. So if you kind of consider this thing to be roughly the height that we want, and then we have these monorail supports. Right, it's up there actually, the pivot. And these guys work in such a way that you basically take like one of these, you fit it nicely so that it sort of supports the track, and then you copy that transform and you create one of these end pieces, and then you move it sort of so that it looks nice with the ground here. You can adjust it however you like. And that's your piece. So that's a pretty tall one. I don't think I necessarily had any that were quite this tall the other level, but we're gonna figure that out, because there's a gameplay thing that happens here. You need to like mess around with this monorail a little bit. I'm not gonna spoil any more than that right now, but I think we'll want to keep it at roughly this level, and we will want to put in a mother vehicle here so that we can see. And we'll put that on the test vehicles. Put a mother vehicle here, see how it's going to be roughly like on that level or something. So it's pretty high still, but let's actually try this out and see what happens. Just fly there. Boop. Yeah, I think this height is probably pretty good. I think I want to raise the terrain here in this part even more, a little more, not a whole lot, but a little more. And then I think I want the track to curve and sort of like cut into there somehow. Maybe even sort of, maybe it should actually go into like a tunnel or something. That's just like an aesthetic detail. Doesn't really matter for the gameplay, I think. If we copy this, make that 40, even less, 30. 30 is probably pretty good. Maybe we'll actually want to make it so that we have the same rotation for all of those. What if we make it like 15 maybe? Is 15 good? 15 is probably good. I'm going to duplicate it again and do the same thing again. And 15. And once more. Yeah, I think so. This will be good. We don't want quite this many supports though. It looks stupid. Or it looks in such a way that I'm not happy with it. Quite wanted to have that many supports. We're gonna fix up those supports when I have adjusted the terrain a little bit. I think that's good, and then it will basically continue here. Let's lower this a little bit. We're gonna need to reserve some space for the actual cars as well. So cut through here. Burp, burp, burp. Bring down the strength a little bit on that. Right, and that means that like realistically this thing should quite simply not be this tall. Bring down the strength quite a bit still here. Take something like this and then we'll melt it a little bit. Yeah, and then let's duplicate that. Then we'll copy this transform, paste it there. Then we'll again rotate the, what was it, 15 degrees, and move it here. I think I actually want this to be a little tighter, and the way I'm going to do it, make it tighter, is that I will make this shorter, and then copy and duplicate, and copy, or not duplicate but rotate. let's see. If the monorail is something common for your game, you can do a procedural / smart prop to automatically place supports and generate the rail. Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure it's quite that common. In fact, I kind of realized that I can use the monorail for this level as well. I mean, maybe these people who have built this place use the same kind of monorail system for lots of things, and that would mean that it might be, you know, used in quite a few places, things that I haven't even really figured out yet. But when I started planning this level that we're now, like the mission, shall we say, more it's more like planning the mission than planning the actual environment where the mission is going to take place. Let's just say I had need for a monorail or something similar. I'm not gonna spoil what that is yet, and I figured, yeah, I'm just gonna use the monorail system because I already have these supports. I have a pretty good way to place these things and make more of them. I mean, yeah, we could have an automatic system that places these pillars, but you almost never get them in the place where you want if you make that kind of system. Or shall we say, I have probably moved the monorail pillars here in this level, you know, gone through and moved these guys probably like 5 or 6 times, you know, redistributed these guys here. So, you know, even if I made like a generator and then I was like, okay, now I know where I want them to be, you know, and then I make the generator so that it kind of allows me to do that. Then at some point later I still want to like change one of them, and then that makes all the other ones look stupid, and then I need to figure out like, okay, so how do I actually want this thing to be distributed now, and blah blah blah. It doesn't take very long to do that, but I think it would take me way too long to actually make the system that like did that. If that makes sense. But yeah, you could do it, and this is actually based on a spline. This actual the track is based on a spline, and then we use some geometry nodes to generate this mesh, and it does like the welding and placing of the individual pieces, all of that stuff, and then does like a cleanup and welding phase. That gives me the mesh, but then I still need to like cut the mesh into different pieces so that you don't have to render the whole thing if you're not seeing the whole thing, and so on. So there's a little bit of like, you know, manual work there anyway. But yeah, if it was something that like would be featured in every level, then maybe we could make something like that happen. Right, I think this is probably going to be good enough for now. Let's make that longer as well. Let's try with the 80 and see what that looks like. So 80 gives us that. Let's do like a 50 and then do one more turn, right? So let's bring this down very slightly to something like that, maybe. And then record the height from there. can sort of run on top of this thing. I don't mind that at all. I think that actually probably will work from a visual perspective. Or not, we'll see. So snap it to that. Actually, I'm just gonna cheat a little bit and make it a little tighter there because I want it to be tighter. Not that tight though. That doesn't look good. But yeah, I'll generate the proper mesh for this when it's time to do that. And then we'll make it a bit longer still. Just slide it along. All right. And again, there it sort of exits the the playable area. So it's fine. It's fine. All right. Yeah, there's gonna be a thing here in this sort of glade thingy, but I don't think we'll probably won't get to that tonight. In fact, in like half an hour, I'm gonna have to stop for today and actually go pick up a kid from their hobby. So won't have time to do that much more today, but this is a good start. You always kind of like when you're working on these levels, at least for me, always like get, what is it called? Oh, that's not good. Can I not? Oh, I edits all of them. That's stupid. I want to make it a little like lower, but I can't do that because my editor is bad. To make them individually. Yeah. Every time you start working on a level, you get this sort of blank page syndrome, or whatever. What is it like that writers get? They're staring at the blank page. I typically stare at the flat terrain, and I go like, okay, so what are we doing? And once you get past that, even if you just get to this point here, which is obviously still super rough, and even if you just get to this point, you already have like some action points to work on. Have some stuff here to start playing with, and it's nicer. Actually, I think I want that thing. Let's move it over here and use it to shape this. Needs to be smaller though. But yeah, it's fun to do actual game development again. Not just tech stuff. Tech stuff is obviously fun. And I do that as like I do and I have done that as a job, as a professional for many years, and I still think it's interesting, all of that. But if I can choose these days, I really like doing actual game development, creating worlds, creating characters and objects and missions and everything. That's fun. I don't really know what I'm doing here with this now. Not sure if I'm making it better or worse. It's one problem with today's work is that I haven't really looked at any reference images for this. Usually when I make make cliffs or something else for the first time for like a level, I kind of try to find some reference images that I'm going like, okay, I kind of want it to look sort of like this new environment. I haven't done that today, so yeah, let's do something about this now. I think we can probably like carve this quite nicely. Just use this guy. We actually make it pretty large, and we'll make it very thin instead. It's the 10th of what it was. Reset it, move it down, then we gonna try to figure out the direction of this slope that I was thinking about adding here. Maybe that is a pretty good direction, and then we start actually making it happen. I think something like this maybe. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Let's extrude and then move it over and extrude more. Yep. That might work. Let's play. Yeah, we need to do something. I think we need to make some some lower cliffs here that kind of reach pretty far out onto the plane there to make this look like I am actually on top of a mountain now. Yeah. Yeah, I mean this is pretty tall. It's pretty high up, this thing. Not sure I want it to be quite that high up, but guess we'll have to figure that out as well. Might be kind of interesting to do something interesting here with this monorail in this area. Have sort of like a junction here, and then like a lower rail that comes down here, something like that. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely not supposed to be a pit here, so let's bring that up. It's just something that was left there from earlier. also end this rail here by like having it dip down to the ground, kind of like we do in the other level, and come to sort of a station here. That might also be interesting. Yeah, bears thinking about. That could be interesting. All right, let's move that out of the way. Yeah, so I think regardless of how we end up doing with this camera thing here, I think this is gonna work. Can't really see this part all that well, and of course I don't really intend to necessarily continue that. The mission is supposed to end here though, so we might have to actually make this make like a protrusion here of this rock here. You're sort of driving around one of these things, so that we don't reveal too much of this kind of mission edge here, or level edge. So just bring this up a little bit. I think we'll do the trick probably. There's a really strange and completely flat face here, which I don't quite like. Let's melt it a little bit. Something like that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure it out. We will figure it out. .1 and 10. I'll take this guy and we'll cut a little bit into this place here, because it got maybe a little too smooth. Became a little too smooth here. Don't want to sort of cut away the road completely. And that makes sense. Then we can melt this a little bit, and then we can cut it again. And I can even make that other way, that way. Then we do melt, and then we do carve, and then we do melt, and then we do carve. We'll see how we do it, but yeah, something like this, I think. We can probably figure out the nice ending using this thing here. We can of course just make sort of like a, I don't know, make it sort of turn around something here. Put some visual blocker there to hide this edge here a little bit. We'll see. It's not a problem. Okay. I need to go pick up a kid pretty soon, so I'm gonna have to end this stream reasonably soon. But yeah, this is pretty early days still. Not necessarily all that beautiful or well playing or even well thought out yet. But it's coming there. And doing things like this when you're just laying out these things, and you can even just playing and driving around this place like this already tells you things about this space, about this level, the way you have it set up. Like excuse me, even just the time it takes to drive from one end of this space here to that edge, even that tells you a little bit about how this thing is going to play. That's important to do. And yeah, I think I'll be spending quite a bit of time with this area this week. But I also might do a little bit of programming, and I thought I might perhaps do a little bit of programming on stream. Something I mentioned on the Discord some time ago, that I witnessed some friends having some really awful experiences with this crane here. Basically couldn't really lift anything with it, and I realized that okay, I probably need to actually make it easier just to attach the crane to things like this vehicle here. To lift the Scout should be easier to do that. I can do it pretty easily, but they clearly didn't have that same nice experience that I can manage. So I have some thoughts about how to make it easier to grab onto things, and that would involve writing a bit of Zig code to tweak how this thing actually works. Oh, you know what we actually probably did? Something completely unrelated to what I just said, but I think we actually probably made that road too narrow for this mother vehicle now, when we added that outcrop there. Well, it probably does actually fit here, but I would be a little nervous about driving this. Well. We'll figure it out. But yeah, evidently it wasn't too narrow. Yes, regardless, a little bit of Zig gameplay coding possibly coming up on a stream one of these days, so do check out the channel and keep an eye on the channel for that, if that sounds interesting. But yes, regardless, I'm planning to stream a bit more frequently than I have been doing for the past couple of months, because it's been sort of slow, and I want to get back into the habit of doing this. So do check out the channel, and remember to like, subscribe, and do all the normal YouTube jazz, if that is your sort of thing. With that, I thank you for your time today. I have to go do family business now, but hope to see you in an upcoming stream. Have a good evening, everyone.